I think we just need a different table, like a shape of a table. And
Yeah.
if we go,
But I think that it,
because I think you can move it back.
yeah.
We have more
Should I shut the
seating.
door, because people.
Yeah.
All over the place this morning, so. Maybe it had that umbrella.
I think everybody has tons of primes.
Yes.
You don't ride them?
I know, right?
Listen, I encourage them that, but nobody listens to me.
I've got a list I'm starting, so next year when someone
Yeah.
comes to talk to me, well,
Say, yeah. Senator Avard has 5 prime bills this morning.
Oh my
Which is why
goodness.
I'm here for him, because he's an energy doing his other 3.
The Senator Perkins Booker is going to be about 10 minutes late. But she'll be able to watch the video. Yeah. Another at Prime. You have time. Is there only just 1 or 2 people
Oh, yeah.
testifying in this?
Would you get the sign-in? Yep, he's about to start. It's the first one.
Senator Long, where did you park today?
Long Park Street, I think.
I pulled in there and there's 2 parking spots that are now gone. There it is.
Senator Pearl.
Yeah.
Everybody ready? And with that, we'll call the meeting of the Election Law and Municipal Affairs Committee for the Senate to order. And we're ready for our first bill. And that's Senate Bill 534. And in lieu of the prime sponsor,
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Tricia Malillo. I'm the Senate Majority Caucus Director here on behalf of Senator Avard, who is in energy right now, introducing his other prime bill. Introducing Senate Bill 534, which is a bill that strengthens enforcement against foreign funding, foreign direction of campaigns for constitutional amendments and local ballot questions. Now, there's already in statute laws that prohibit contributions to candidates from foreign nationals, but there's a gray area which allows them to contribute when it comes to local ballot questions or state constitutional amendments. So this bill will strengthen that, having people certify that they are not foreign national when they're donating money for these. The bill actually does 4 different things, and it adds 5 different sections to RSA 664. So it will add 664, 24, 25, all the way to 31, and just goes through the Secretary of State, who can control the certifications for the contributions. Yeah. And I can answer any questions or pass them along. I know there's somebody behind me that can probably answer them better.
questions from senators. Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this will be a question you can pass along.
Sure.
I understand this topic is you're dealing with foreign entities and participation of foreign governments or foreign based entities taking part in our political system.
Yes.
A topic of concern in my district, and we're going to get way off topic, but hopefully it'll make sense when I finish the question.
Sure.
Is we've got large tracts of land up north that are being essentially put on a shelf due to carbon sequestration projects. And it appears, based on the research that I've done, is no one's really sure who's buying these carbon credits. And, you know, in all practicality, when a carbon credit is purchased, land is not harvested.
Okay.
So the concern is, are there foreign entities that are buying these credits and taking our timber market off the shelf,
Okay.
and therefore for not only affecting our local economies, but quite frankly, national security.
Sure.
So, you know, just the question for the sponsor is there any type of chain of custody for these carbon purchases that would indicate whether a foreign entity is purchasing access
question.
to our land?
Yeah, that is a good question. I will pass it along
Thank
to
you.
the stakeholders too. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, thank you very much. Olivia?
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Olivia Zink, and I'm the Executive Director of Open Democracy Action. So I want to just say that I'm testifying for information only on this bill. We support the idea of banning foreign money, but this bill is not ready for prime time the way it's drafted. My first concern is on line 8. The bill makes reference to 664:2, which is the definition of measures. Measures is a constitutional amendment. I don't think we want towns and cities and school districts to put constitutional amendments on the ballot. I think you want to reserve that for state power. And also, we already have a great law that governs sort of campaign finance and foreign nationalists. And so I know you're trying to extend that state ban to the local level. So I'm not sure if you have to do this through RSA 639-2, which governs warrants. And then for cities, you'd have to go to the, how cities put questions on the ballot, which is a different statute. And then I got lost in the statutes trying to figure out how you could extend this outwards. So then I started looking at RSA 6453, which is your current ban on foreign nationalists. And I thought, maybe if you change the applicability of the statute on 664.1, because right now 664.1 through 14 is only good for state elections, but 664.14 through 22 is applicable to the presidential primary, cities, towns, school district, and village. So if you put the corporate ban applicable to the other elections, maybe that's an easier way to try to accomplish this. Now, I know there's some issues in the state, and it's not campaign finance related and foreign national. So I don't know how you solve some of the purchasing of land by foreign national, which I think is what this bill is trying to get to. I also printed out a 58-page national NCSL report about foreign contributions. There's court cases. There's lots of sort of things around, right now, U.S. residents have First Amendment and constitutional rights, but foreign nationals don't apply to those things. And so there's a lot of case law and other provisions that are worth looking in deeply. And I'll just leave one copy for the chair to read this.
If you send an electronic copy, it would be much better. You can send it to the committee. That way it'll get in the final report also.
Happy to take any questions.
Questions from the senators? Do you want a chance to sit down and see if you have any questions? Oh, all right. Seeing no other questions, thank you very much.
Some wobbly tires this morning, so
Wobbly tires?
I don't know. My car was just going like this. Yeah,
Snow in the wheels, probably.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was embedded in a snowbank. So.
All right. That was the last person who has signed up. On the online, I think there was 8 total. No, there was 11 total. 8 in support, 3 opposed, and there was 1 additional person who signed up here that is support of the bill. All right, with that, we'll close public hearing and the next one isn't due for a minute or two, I don't think. Yep.
What do you got? We got a solid 2 feet. Wow. Plus, because then it snowed again all day yesterday. So, how about you?
Hard to say. My guesstimate is around 13, 14, but
No, we didn't.
I didn't hear you.
I thought we already had exec 495, but we must have just talked about the amendment, right?
No, we exec it, but got a
You're
non-germane
reviving
amendment.
it. Okay.
We did a, much. We're going to start the hearing on Senate Bill 643, and in lieu of the prime sponsor.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Tricia Malillo. I'm the Senate Majority Caucus Director here on behalf of Senator Avard, who is in energy introducing his other prime bill. Senate Bill 643 requires cities and towns to hold a public hearing and conduct a roll call when seeking to override a tax or spending cap. This is to give the public a little bit more notice when this happens, and a little more transparency as to who voted for the tax override. And I can take any questions to Senator Avard if you have any.
Questions from the senators? Seeing none.
You're good.
I can, you can ask me, Senator.
You're fine.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Brody?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the committee for taking my testimony this morning. For the record, I'm Brody DeShays. I represent the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and we are opposed to Senate Bill 643 as introduced. This bill would require a public hearing on every appropriation beyond a local tax cap to be done in accordance with RSA 32:5 Roman 1, and require a recorded roll call of the legislative body's vote to be kept as an official record, presumably in the meeting minutes of when the vote occurred. Additionally, the result of this vote by the legislative body would be published on the next property tax bill and would include the name of every individual member of the legislative body and their vote. In a city where the city council, the aldermanic board, acts as a legislative body when adopting the annual budget, this could theoretically work, though we would oppose the additional mandated reporting requirements. In a traditional town meeting form of government or a town meeting by ballot form of government commonly called SB2, the legislative body is the voters attending the town meeting who vote on warrant articles. Senate Bill 643 would require a public hearing on every warrant article appropriating beyond the tax cap, which is already required under RSA 32:5. You have to have a hearing presenting your annual budget and warrant articles, all the appropriations. But it add an additional requirement for each warrant article to have a separate hearing and for the hearing to last at least 60 minutes.
You can talk to me, Brody. You don't have to read. We can.
No.
You're going to hand that in.
No, these are just my personal notes. Sorry. And I'm not reading them verbatim. So Senate Bill 643 would require a roll call vote of all those present at the vote when it happens. And in a traditional town form of meeting of government, this would require a roll call of calling every individual who's at the town meeting voting on the appropriation beyond the tax cap. In an SB2 town where they're voting by ballot, that would defeat the whole purpose of having a secret ballot, and it would be impossible. It would not be possible to know who every member of the legislative body is and how they voted on the tax cap. I also think additionally, on top of all, just the logistics of trying to actually get a roll call in those 6 municipalities that have a tax cap locally adopted, reporting every single person's full name and how they voted on the next tax bill could be hundreds or thousands of names included in the next tax bill. So this would be a significant issue in a town operating under a local charter too, depending on what their process is for budget adoption, if it goes through the legislative body, the voters. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions from the senators? Senator Burton Gorga. Oh, you guys, you can fight it out.
I'll defer to my colleague.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Brody. I'm looking at adopted tax or spending caps. Would that include Manchester has a spending cap and a revenue cap? Would that include a revenue cap?
A tax cap essentially is a revenue cap. So
Okay. So in your opinion, the adopted tax cap revenue would be included?
I thank you for the question, Senator Long. I think that's correct. I think it's also it's difficult to know whether or not a charter tax cap would be subject to these provisions of law because those were adopted through a charter and not adopted under some section of RSA Chapter 32. I think the intent is for charter tax caps and for those adopted via statute to both be applicable under this. And I think this bill was probably primarily written to apply to cities because it's a lot easier to record the vote of the aldermanic board or the city council and put that on a tax bill if there's only 9 of them versus 1,000 voters who attend town meeting.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Additional questions?
Thank you. So I just was, so basically, for each warrant article, you read this to require a separate public meeting that would require it to last at least 60 minutes. I mean, how does that work? Basically, if there's interest in having an override of the local tax cap, you hold your regular, sort of town meeting, then you have to separately schedule and ask for attendance at these other meetings as well in order to advance that legislatively?
So it's kind of looking at how this would operate if a municipality, and again, only 6 have adopted the provisions of 32:5-B, that's a locally adopted tax cap, and they adopted through the provisions of RSA 32:5-C. Each time that you have an appropriation that's beyond the tax cap that's been set by whatever you adopted your tax cap at, you need to have an override vote, and it needs to be of the legislative body, and it needs to be a 2/3 vote. So presumably, if the local town, if the town's government has presented a budget that's beyond the tax cap, and then every warrant article after the budget would also be an appropriation beyond the tax cap, you would need to, during your budget hearings, have 60 minutes for your budget and then 60 minutes for every additional appropriation, the warrant article. Then at the town meeting, whether it's at the second session in an SB2 town or at the traditional town meeting, the only session, you need to have a 2/3 vote to override every tax cap, and then you would need to record that roll call and put it onto the tax bill if the provisions of this bill as presented were adopted. So that's how we imagine it would work, and as I mentioned, that would be logistically impossible in an SB2 town, extremely difficult in a traditional town meeting form of government, and also it's questionable about whether or not the provisions of this, the law being presented here would actually apply to chartered tax caps, which we think is what the purpose of the bill is to try to get a roll call vote of aldermanic boards and city councils overriding the charter tax cap.
Got it. Thank you.
Senator Lang.
So I'm going to go to traditional town meeting, being a moderator and managing a town that's a traditional town meeting. I'm more familiar with the process. So would the public budget, so when you, coming up into March, right, in February here, we're going to have our various public hearings on the budget before it's presented and the warrants are written. Would those public hearings, even though we haven't locked down the language, because the selectmen still have the right to change the language in that public hearing, would that work towards this bill? If you had a public hearing and they had a list of warrant articles and there were some articles that were going to cause you to go over the spending cap, would that suffice the way you read this bill as a public hearing on the purpose of the warrant, for that warrant, as long as it was 60 minutes long when you have that public hearing?
I thank you for the question, Senator. The way I interpret the bill, and let me find, it says on lines 24 and 25 on the first page, it says, provide at such hearing a public comment period at least 60 minutes in duration during which any citizen may address the proposed override. Because each warrant article is treated as a separate question, it would be itself a separate override. I would interpret it as requiring 60 minutes for each proposed override.
Okay, so you're reading it as individual, so
Yeah.
we have six warrant articles, 6 hours long. You don't think that can be done in a single hour? The way I read it is a little bit different than you. I think that if you have the hearing and here's all the articles that are and you can comment on, that may override your tax cap, and you have a right to comment on them. We'll hold an hour meeting or more, depending on what's needed.
Thank you for the question, Senator Langer. I guess the additional comment. I think the key thing there is the proposed override, and each warrant article is a separate override. It's subject to those override provisions currently in 32:5-B. I'll also flag too, the law was recently retroactively updated to require a ballot vote at the town meeting for every additional override. So it would be difficult to not just call the roll, but also have that required ballot vote too operationally to do this. So I would interpret it as for every question of an override, which would be the budget and every warrant article subsequent after that, that goes beyond the tax cap, you would need to have 60 minutes of public input, and you would need to have a vote to override the tax cap on each of those separate questions as is currently in law.
Not at the public comment section.
Not at the, that would happen. So
So
you would,
whatever the
yeah.
whatever the annual meeting is
Yeah.
each.
so there's the public hearing requirements that this ties to that already exist. It modifies that for appropriations beyond the tax cap. Then you go into the town meeting and you have all the other override provisions, but then you have to keep track of the roll call for reporting on the tax bill.
Next question. So again, I guess my question comes around this idea of the legislative body. Again, different in a city than different in a town. Town, it's all the taxpayers. In a city, it's the Board of Aldermen, so to speak. And is it your reading of the bill that the intent was to have if it's not going to be all the taxpayers, then the legislative body, being the Board of Aldermen, is what we're talking about, roll calling to make sure that voters know who they voted for, how they voted.
I think that was the intent of the bill. That would be my best guess. I can't speak exactly to motive, but I would presume that that was the intent.
Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brody was the last one that signed up for this. We have one additional person who signed up here and is in support, and online we have 12 in support, 108 opposed. Come on up.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you, Brody, for the information. The intent of the bill was that it's just the elected officials that would be listed on how they voted, so that the citizens, like you said, Senator Lang, could see that. And the 60-minute was just for public comment, that you can't cut them off after 15 minutes, to, again, be more transparent and give the public some time. And I don't know if if there needs to be some language changed at all, but it was just any original tax override that you're going to vote on. So it's not every warrant article is what the intention of the bill was.
Certainly.
So again, I guess my question is, you recognize, again, the legislative body in a traditional town meeting is everybody shows up at the town meeting,
Right.
and having a roll call vote of the couple hundred people that show up at town meeting could be
Yes.
problematic, do
Sure.
you think?
Exactly. It was just meant to be for the elected officials.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, and we will close that public hearing. And the next one is due in a couple of minutes. That's fine. To open the hearing on Senate Bill 586 FN.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The issues with the Claremont School District, I think we're all familiar with and have been beaten to death in the press and in this building over the last 6 months since the issues came to light. You know, I sat in on a committee hearing, I want to say it was September, and it was about a 2-hour long hearing. We asked questions of people from the SAU who were there to start to solve the problem and ask for our assistance. And one line jumped out at me during that hearing, and I know you were there, Mr. Chairman, and that was that they were years behind in doing the audits that were required. And I handed around this big article, but on page 3, it says the audit for fiscal year 2015 wasn't completed and delivered until January 2019. And then a little later, the audits for 23 through 25 have not been completed. That's really what this bill is attempting to address. Audits are essential. And had the audits been done as required, when required, we never would have gotten to this point. We wouldn't be looking at a $5 million plus deficit in Claremont, and the state wouldn't be on the hook and trying to bail them out at this point. So that's what the bill is trying to address. Essentially, the bill says that the state aid won't go to SAUs that do not turn in the audits until it does. The goal isn't to punish SAUs, it's to encourage them to submit the audits on time. And that's nuts and bolts of the bill.
Questions from the senators? Senator Bernard Gorka.
Thank you, Senator. I think we all share an interest in making sure that our taxpayer dollars are used efficiently, that our schools are high quality, and the idea that, you know, sort of financial use of taxpayer dollars would be audited as a common one. Have you thought about a structure where there's a little more accounting for districts that might miss a deadline but have a little bit of a grace period, or you know, just sort of less resourced school districts getting some assistance with the cost of an audit for something like this? Just, and I ask because it's probably likely that well-resourced school districts can meet this obligation much more readily than under-resourced ones.
Well, the audit's already required, is my understanding, by state law. And again, the goal isn't to punish SAUs. We're not going to begin taking away aid money under the bill. It simply says they don't get the aid money until they submit it. They submit the audits late, they still get all the aid money under the bill. So, you know, if that's the will of the committee, is to amend the bill to have a further grace period or something along those lines, or shift the timelines out to allow them more time, I would support that. We can't have SAU submitting audits 3, 5, 8 years late.
Sure.
That's the point.
Yep. Understood. Thank you.
Senator Lang.
So I like the bill. My question is, you have a line in here on 16, the Commissioner, Department of Education shall verify the reports appear complete comparing against those of the prior years. Do you think we should put a date on that? So we know that schools have to file it by September 1, but there's no date requiring when the Commissioner actually look at it, review it, make sure it's okay, before imposing the penalty that is potential if it's not okay, or if it's not correct or anything else. So,
Senator, I believe that's a good addition, a good catch.
great.
Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, that is the only person who has signed up for speaking on this bill. Online, there were 5 in support and 1 opposed. And with that, we will close the public hearing and we'll open the next one in just a couple of minutes. 10 minutes. Well, you never know. And the snow, I think, has affected our attendance. But for anyone that is online, you certainly still can submit written testimony by following the link, the committee link on the Senate website.
This is Senator Lang and Senator Perkins. I don't think you met them yet. This is our intern, Anthony. I want to
I'm
keep
going
going.
to school from the state, criminology major, minor in pre-law.
So let's do your thing.
From the state,
Go Bandits.
yeah. All the way up there in the White Mountains. It was a very tough weekend with the,
Oh, I
with
bet.
the ice.
How much did you get?
A lot. I don't know. A lot. It took me a while to show my truck out of the snow.
Yeah, I remember the like college parking lots. It's like not great. Yeah, nobody takes care of them when you're like somewhere. I tried to be able to lot A, and it was like there was campus, and then lot A was a mile down over the street. And then I remember we had some crazy snowstorm right there. You just walked in, you didn't even know which part was yours. It was like all just kind of
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, I know.
it was crazy, but
yeah.
you got over there.
Yeah.
Needle between.
You just don't want to show up the wrong one, have that person
Yeah,
show up
right.
and say thank you.
See you later.
For helping you.
Yeah, right.
Yes. No?
All right, call the Senate back, the Senate Election Law and Municipal Affairs Committee back into session, and we are ready to present Senate Bill 585.
Hello again, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Tricia Malillo, Senate Majority Caucus Director, here on behalf of Senator McConkey to introduce Senate Bill 585. This bill provides an exception to the requirements that communications districts hire an outside accountant to conduct an audit. And it provides guidelines for that. The Department of Revenue shall waive the requirement under certain conditions for districts that their annual revenue was less than 50,000 during the previous year or less than 2 million during the prior fiscal year. And it goes on with some other conditions to waive that.
All right, any questions from the senators? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
There is no one that has signed up on the sheet. And online, there were 5 in support, 1 opposed. The senators have anything? Seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing and we'll be back at 5th quarter after, I think it is. Okay. This is public hearing on non-germane amendments. We'll get to that.
Okay, sorry. Only if we act on it. We would have to consider.
We're-
We can hear the public hearing.
Not for the public hearing.
Okay.
And we may do something procedurally that takes care of that, but we'll talk about that in executive session. Okay. So let me find my folder. And without objection, I'm going to present the amendment right from here. This is an amendment to SB 495 to make correction to the appointments for members and the chair of the BTLA. And if the senators have any questions, seeing none, we'll go right to Eric. Come on up.
Good morning, Chairman Gray and Senators. My name is Eric Wind. I'm a member of the Board of Tax and Land Appeals. The board does not necessarily take a position on this amendment, but we did want to be here to answer any questions that may arise. We see this as a housekeeping measure to make explicit what is implicit in the statute already.
All right. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll close the public
Thank you.
hearing on the amendment, and I'll take a motion going to executive session.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion second going to executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. We're in executive session, and we'll talk about 495 right to start. I was contacted that when we did the various language in the last session, we made this error here. And so I will just picked a bill to have the public hearing on. In actuality, there's one of the other bills that we probably will ITL. I would like to actually do this as a committee amendment on the other bill, and then it'll go forward that way. So let us start the other ones, and then we'll.
Mr. Chair, if you want to continue on that line,
Okay.
and we'll take a look at Senate Bill 489.
489.
And if you're ready for a motion, I'll make it.
So-
Yes, let me get that folder out.
Chairman, just while you're getting your folder out, so just to clarify, if we hold the non-germane, if we hold the hearing on the proposed non-germane amendment, the
Yep.
hearing itself standing alone is made germane by the vote of the whole Senate, right? But the amendment is made germane. I don't know, I just would like to understand how we attach it to something else in committee, because I understand the procedure on the floor.
Yeah, on the floor, I can do it there. If certainly I could do it if we only consider 495. I could do it as floor amendment. I could pull back 495 and do it there, and then pass it. The rules of the Senate talk about holding public hearings, and if you held a public hearing on it, then it would be germane to a bill. I might be stretching it just a little bit,
Okay.
but again, as long as the thing is done without objection, the bill that we were looking at was Senate Bill 489, and that one, we were going to move ITL, but if the committee wants to, we can do a committee amendment putting in the other language and replace all. And so 489 would go away,
Yep.
except for the new language on the BTLA.
Yeah, and to be clear, I wasn't asking the question so much to challenge this procedurally as just to make sure I understand. I
Yep.
haven't seen us do it this way, but I hear your logic.
All right. So
With that,
on
Mr. Chair, I'll move-
49,
I'll move OTP.
we have an OTP from Senator Lang.
On
49.
49.
And I will second it.
If I can further. Mr. Chair, I recommend, I'm going to offer that we, amendment number 161 be redrafted onto this bill and change it as to a replace all amendment.
Senator Lang moves. Committee
Second.
amendment. And did you say you seconded?
I did.
All right. Okay. All right, any discussion? All
Uh,
those in, oh,
I was just gonna say, I think this is a good use of this vehicle as the underlying bill seemed to raise some logistical concerns.
amen. Okay. Senator
So-
Long,
Mr. Chairman, are we voting first on the ITL? Or
We are-
The vote is right
We
now
made a
on
motion
this
of
amendment?
OTP and then we moved the amendment. So we have, the next vote will be on the amendment being drafted as a replace all for 489. So the amendment becomes the bill.
So as published in the calendar, we'll see 2026-0161S as redrafted as a committee
no,
amendment.
it'll have a different
It'll
number.
have a new number.
It's gotta have a new number.
Same text redrafted as a replace all amendment to 489.
The text will be slightly different because it won't have paragraph 2.
Yep.
It will be paragraph 1
Yep.
and then the language
Yep.
for the effective date. And the effective date should be upon passage
Yep.
for that.
Okay.
So does everybody know what you're voting for now? A committee amendment that takes the language for the BTLA and makes it effective upon passage. All right, that is what the amendment is. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it.
Can we move
And the
cons-
bill as amended, I want to take the vote on that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. And do I have a motion
Move
for
consent.
consent?
Second. If you want it.
Anyone else?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of consent say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay, and I will take that one out.
Mr. Chair, if we look at SB 436 next.
We're gonna get rid of this. Four 36. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll move
Relative-
ITL.
Senator Lang moves ITL. I'll second it.
If I may, Mr. Chair. Besides the fact that we think that this level should be dealt with in a local ethics situation, a local recusal policy, there were some problems with the bill in and of itself. As I was talking about during the hearing, the on line 5, the any circumstances and might reasonably be are pretty hard to, to establish, especially when you attach a shall to it. And so I think mechanically this bill's got problems, and that's why I recommend the ITL.
Additional comments, questions? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Do I have a motion for consent?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion for consent? LL, all right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And Senator Lang, you get to take
I can
that.
give the Senator Long if you'd like it.
Yeah, I'll pick it up.
He-
That's fine.
All right, Senator Long. right, let's,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to take up Senate Bill 437,
437.
and I'll move ITL, and I'd like to speak to my motion.
We have a motion of ITL by Senator Lang. I'll second it.
I could speak to this.
Absolutely.
I think what we heard in the hearing, which I thought was a very valid point by the secretary, was that collecting this data on the official record might open the door to other things, which I agree with, and I appreciated his comments. What I did ask for in the hearing was time to sit down with the secretary and work out perhaps a different way to collect this data from cities and towns, again, because we should understand the consequences of the laws we are making. And if the way I've proposed doesn't exactly work for the secretary, then I'm happy to work with him to find another way. But I think it's important that we look clear-eyed at the effects of our laws so that we're able to use that data to fix and tweak this, because as stated, you know, we all share an interest in making sure our elections are secure, but we also have a very important imperative to make sure nobody is turned away from using their legitimate right to vote. So I would like additional time to work with the secretary on an amendment on this.
On this bill, I have spoken several times about the things that we have done to make it easier for people to vote. Okay. Certainly, for years and years, if you went down to your city or town hall and you said, okay, I moved from Manchester 12 to Berlin, they go in, they look you up in the voter system, and they say, okay, all you have to do is you prove your identity and your domicile. Okay. Because the big hang up at the polls when you do there, if those records aren't available, then there's no way for them to look you up and know that you've already proven Asian citizenship in the past. But every record that I know of in the state that we would be using for this, we're now supposedly going to have those available either at the polls or a telephone call away. A marriage in the state, births in the state, DMV records, prior voting database. So everything that I know of is there. Certainly, I would like to see, in addition to the pamphlet that we saw at the hearing, that the secretary puts out, some public service announcements, you know, especially in the spring for the town meetings, but also, you know, later in the year for the state conducted meetings or city meetings or elections. So I guess I have no objection to giving you a little more time. But, you know, I think, you know, we've pretty much done what we can do.
If I may, sir, one thing that's still not available is records for marriages that are out of state. And so that's something that is still going to be a barrier at the polls. And if we have all this information available, which is a good thing, because hopefully it will allow more people to be able to vote, we've also created the problem in the first place of needing it. And so in order to address that, it seems to me that if your allegation is that this information will make it more secure and also still allow people to vote, then the data should back you up on that, and therefore we should look at it to make sure that that is true.
The out-of-state marriage records, there's no way that I can get those. Okay. I don't have any control over them. Certainly anyone that we have control of in the state, you know, that I've mentioned before are there. That certainly the recent decisions that we've had in the courts point that it is the person who is trying to register, you know, its obligation to provide those documents. And that's why I go to public service announcements that say, I've also had conversations with the Secretary of State about the Secretary of State's Association, which is also trying to deal with this and be able to share some records back and forth. We in New Hampshire made great strides in being able to go in now and get a birth certificate like that says for voting registration only at no cost. I'll reiterate, I went and took my grandson down to register to vote when he turned 18. And the woman says, oh, all he has to do is sign the affidavit. I said, I don't want him to sign the affidavit. I want his birth certificate. Well, I can't give you his birth certificate because we're in Rochester and he was in Dover. If you want his birth certificate, you have to pay the $15 to get his birth certificate. I gave her the money. Okay? That should not have happened. And it won't happen now. But those records, he would have been able to register at the polls had those records been available. So again, it's, not that I'm, I keep telling people, easy to vote, hard to cheat. And when we went to taking away the affidavits, I'm not saying that it was wrong to take away the affidavits, but I needed something to balance that, okay? And balancing it was having those records at the polling place to be able to have those voters not turned away at the polls. So, if without objection, Senator Lang, if you rescind your motion, we'll put this one on hold for at least a week.
Out of a courtesy to my colleague, I will withdraw my motion and allow her some time to work with the Secretary of State. Mr. Chair, as a co-sponsor this bill, as I said in the testimony, my concern, especially how it's written, is that it's so ambiguous that, while I agree, I think this is important information to have, both for two reasons. You can argue voter suppression, I can argue for cheating, right? Is that it works both directions, the data. But the problem is that, as it came out in testimony, that the ability to manipulate this number is problematic for me, right? Because it could show us that we have a problem that we really don't have, and then we're stuck investing all kinds of money to chase down a problem that isn't real. Or the other way around, we find we do have a problem and we can adjust it with the laws. But I'm just concerned for the veracity of the number we would get would not be accurate, and in which case, I think someone made the point: if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right? And so, but if the number you're measuring is not good, then the management's not going to be good either. And so, to me, unless we can find a way of tightening this up to where it's realistic, we heard from the woman who gave us the 200 number that everybody's been citing, only to find out that she has no idea if it's an accurate number either, because she doesn't know if any of those 200 people came back and voted, because they weren't following that. They were taking people who turned away at the line, and we don't know if they came back and actually did vote. Or not. They said anybody who was in the voting line who walked away, they marked them off as being turned away. And yet that person could have came back at 2:30 in the afternoon when the polling lines are generally small, and between lunch and dinner, and voted. And yet it's counted in that they were turned away number. So the veracity of the number is problematic for me. And until we can get to a way that we know that what we're actually talking about are the actual people that were turned away and didn't come back and vote, I'm gonna have a hard time voting for this bill, especially in light of all the strides we've made in the last few years to make other public records available so that people are not turned away. So for that reason, I'll withdraw and give you a chance to see if you can figure out a way to make sure that number is accurate.
I appreciate the consideration of the committee. I appreciate the comments. I do appreciate the work to make this data available. I do think we're working our way towards improvements in the system. But in the meantime, I just have to add that as a busy mom myself who takes my kids to vote and gets there every time after school drop off and in between dinner, I do think it's just very important that we make sure we're looking ourselves in the eye on these laws, and that if I can find a way with the Secretary of State to address some of the concerns that have been raised in the hearing, then I will do that. But again, this is just such a fundamental right. I think it's worth the effort. So thank you.
And it'll be not acted on until at least next week.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I am working with the NHMA on language for whether or not it's a hardship on the zoning regulations. The direction that I'm trying to take is that if it is a condition of the land which makes the strict adherence to the law or the zoning inappropriate, okay, that's where I want to go. I want to take away that word hardship in there because I don't think people, I think that the paragraph that describe what would have been a hardship, there's 2 paragraphs in that same section.
Yeah.
Those I think are pretty good, and I don't think they really need to change because I also don't want to create a situation where all the case law that we've got about hardship all goes away and is no longer applicable because repeating that is not good for any of us.
Right.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I'll work on an amendment for Senator Murphy's bill, 586, that deals with the audit reports to create some other timelines in there so we understand better when, in fact, the board has to respond once they get the audit and validate it and say it's okay before people start withholding funds from the school district, and what the timeline looks like for withholding funds to make sure if they're in a remediation process, maybe we don't withhold funds,
Right.
kind of thing. So,
Right.
so I'll work on that amendment.
Okay.
Anything else you guys want to talk about? All right, I'll take a motion. Come on, executive.
Before we do, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Senator McConkey's been sitting there awful politely and quietly, and I assume he has something he wants to say or talk about, and maybe we can ask him to
Do
come
you,
up.
Senator?
Good morning. I was here for 580.
You need to come up for.
Just want to give you.
Oh, it wasn't fun. It was not fun.
I apologize. Not mean to be tardy.
No problem. We personally, intentionally did not take any action on any of the bills today because if the public does want to provide testimony and was not able to get here, I want to give them that opportunity.
Okay, so we'll do this another day, or can I speak?
No, you can speak. You can speak now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, illustrious members of Election Law and Municipal Affairs, first time appearing here. I'm here to present Senate Bill 585 relative to audits for communication districts. I have I believe you received testimony from the chairman of this and also from Matthew Platch from Wolfboro. And I'll just, if you don't, I have Mr. Flatch's testimony. He said it had been sent along. And if you wouldn't mind, I'll just read short a couple excerpts out of this. And Bill's provision, RSA 530 G10, to allow communication districts to petition the Department of Revenue Administration for an exception from annual outside audit requirements under certain circumstances. Specifically, this bill allows for an exemption from outside audit requirement for any year when annual revenues of the communications district do not exceed $50,000, or when annual revenues are less than $2 million, the district has no authority to raise money from taxation. Under current law, and what I'm here speaking of is the Carroll County Communications District, CCCD, is spending more in conducting an annual audit than it spends on all other costs combined. As shown in the report, annual report, 2026 fiscal year budget includes total expenses of $6,000, $628, of which $3,500 was to pay for an outside audit. Without this amendment, the CCCD will spend $3,500 to audit $2,500 in cost. They found this to be highly unusual and asked me to come forward and ask if you might consider this amendment.
Anyone else? Think they're good?
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right.
I'll make a motion to come out of executive
We
session.
have a motion to come out of the executive session. I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Our business today being complete, we are adjourned.
Oh, I've got commerce next. So 5:30, yeah, right. 4 minutes. And then I got meetings, so.
And we got you out before you had to leave.
I know, pretty good.